Looks like probably our next match is right here, Shoma Honami.
Grand finals. And so Alcana
So
down in
Trick Room
Endo
team
dropped
versus
out in the
Shohei's
losers
team,
bracket.
which is
But in the
very
losers
similar to the one that
bracket,
he won
yeah, there you will have
Worlds with.
one of the greatest matchup, in my
That's
opinion, that
amazing.
you could have,
Yeah,
at
here.
least in terms of the names. I mean, yeah, we have three world champions somewhere in the area here. One of them, of course, Wolf is hosting the entire thing. But then with Shoma Honami and Shohei Kimura, our newly crowned
High after the victory. Pretty interesting teams here as well.
All right. So teams are back on. You know what that means. It's time to draw on the screen. I feel like we barely progressed in the timer of the timer of the thing during that last match. And I'm getting more and more worried that I'm not going to sleep at all tonight. But it's fine. Everything's fine. Okay. So, things to look at. First of all, we know that this is a pretty heavily invested Trick Room team from Shoma. Um, it doesn't. I don't feel like it's got a crazy good matchup into Shohei's team. Mugus can really cause some problems, and Iron Hands can also cause a lot of problems. Being that these are both slower mons, I could see them really, really making it difficult to get Trick Room down consistently, and also um, causing problems once it is down. That being said, other than the Choice Specs Flutter main, I don't see a whole lot of ways to really remove this Cresselia safely and quickly, which could be really important for making sure that we get Trick Room up. But for the first time today, I think this taunt is going to be very relevant. Because we look over here, Cresselia is not running Mental Herb. Amogus is not running Mental Herb. I think those are going to be very important later on, right? Like preventing Amogus from rage patterning or sporing. Well, not nearly as big of a deal on this team because we did see how ridiculous the grass knot calcs actually are. When we ran those earlier, I was shocked with how much damage they were doing. Right, 2-hit KOing Chen Pao cleanly, doing upwards of 80% to Urshifu. Granted, with no investment in these stats, right? But like doing some very serious damage. Because I didn't invest anything in the special attack stat of Amoongus either. Could potentially do some very serious damage, so maybe it's less important on the Amoongus, but taunting a Cresselia and keeping Trick Room from going up could be a really massive swing in the favor of Shohei. But it comes with its own risks, right? If you're in a situation where you're trying to taunt them, but you leave yourself open to like a wild charge, you could lose your Urshifu just for trying to taunt, right? If you intend to attack with your Chien Pao and you want to use your Urshifu, right? You could realistically lose your Chien Pao for taunting with your Urshifu because Moonblast plus another attack from another Mon just kills you. And furthermore, I'm not seeing too many great ways, I don't think, to reliably beat Sylveon. Remember we were talking about how Moongus Sylveon seemed really strong into a lot of stuff, but he didn't have a great way to lead it consistently against his previous opponents. I think he's not going to have that problem this time around. Seems like a much more favorable time to run a Moongus Sylveon lead. Just disregard Trick Room in its entirety and just try and kill everything with Sylveon. And maybe bring in Iron Hands and Heatran or Iron Hands and Landorus in the late game. Just clean up because of their extreme bulk and generally good matchups. So I could see that as a win con for Shoma. Shohei's team, there's a lot of really consistent, really powerful Pokemon, right? We're looking at Urshifu with Mystic Water next to Chien-Pao, the classic. This is Chien-Pao with the Ghost Terra, so nothing funky happening here, and with the Focus Sash. So again, nothing funky happening here. But it's still a powerful lead duo. We also see the Fluttermane Choice Specs. This is absurdly powerful, as we've seen throughout the season. As you've seen in every format where this is legal, Choice Specs on Fluttermane can never be bad. And this is Terra Grass, so it does get to ignore Amoonguss. You remember I was talking about how there's not really a whole lot of ways to deal effectively on turn 1 with Amoonguss Sylveon lead. Fluttermane does actually get to ignore Amoonguss and go in and do some serious damage to the Sylveon. There are caveats, of course, like there always are. The Sylveon can always Terra Fire and blow up the Fluttermane for even attempting to try and deal with the Sylveon. So it ends up being a 50-50, right? You could potentially burn your Terra just to get smoked by Terra Fire, Terra Blast. And there's not really a good amount to predict on that, So honestly, after all of that, I feel like the advantage does lead with Shoma. If Trick Room goes up, obviously, right? It's a Trick Room team for the most part. But I feel like there's enough bulk and like various switching opportunities that Shoma could actually really perform even without Trick Room. This feels like a much better matchup for Shoma. I am predicting that Shoma will win this one. But this is the one match where Taunt Urshifu is actually going to be probably a very big deal. So I would look out for that. I guess one other thing that I failed to mention is that Lando actually, because of safety goggles, doesn't get affected by Rage Powder either. So there are a couple more ways that I'm giving credit for to deal with the Sylveon. But again, it does require the correct lead. It requires choosing the correct move. And at least in Fluttermane's case, it requires a 50-50 on Terra for the most part. Like, you'll get your damage off, right? If you lead Fluttermane and Terra it, but do you die for it? And is that worth it? So I think it'll be a pretty interesting match. I'm definitely looking to... I did not Heatran this time. I've been talking up Heatran all day. I'm not looking to Heatran this time. I'm looking specifically how Shohei deals with Amoonguss, and in turn how Urshifu's Taunt deals with Cresselia, and then the counterplay that Shoma brings. I think this one's a lot harder to choose like an MVP in than some of the previous matches we've been in. And I think that's pretty reflected by my analysis stopping so early. I barely drew on this, and that's because I think a lot of this comes down to how each player wants to play their team. I feel like this one's a lot less about matchups. Why is it being weird?
On Shoma's side, I'm seeing a Sylveon, and I think it's adorable. It's holding those choice specs as well, so it cannot be underestimated.
I feel like this one's a lot less about matchups and a lot more about just play. You want to read your opponent, put them in difficult positions, and force your win con that way.
I actually got to ask Shoma a couple days ago at the Pokemon World Championships if he has a spicy team prepared for this event. Because maybe this has already been brought up before, but yeah, Shoma actually, he was qualified for Japan Nationals, but he decided to drop out and not participate. So he, didn't want to try and qualify for the World Championships because he was saying, I think, that he wanted to focus more on being a content creator. And I mean, Wolfe could probably also tell. But here in this invitational, but
on how to contend with. But I think in this again, a Pokemon
Shoma, the world champion
as well. Gonna hit 3 times.
We see our players, 2 world champions, of course. Shoma, the world champion, famously in 2015, and then on the other side, Shohei just claiming the title this past weekend and already back into action. When we talk about Amoonguss, I think one thing that is important to mention or to have a look at is, of course, which ways do these players have to play around Amoonguss. So Amoonguss, as we can see, is on both sides, but and we will be seeing the game from Shoma's perspective. So on Shoma's team, there is the Heatran and the Iron Hands that both can terrestrialize into grass. I think that's going to be very important to make sure that your opponent's Amoonguss, when you set up the Trick Room for it, doesn't just put everything to sleep before you get to do the damage you want. So I think Shoma's probably looking to maybe terrestrialize one of the two, if the Amoonguss makes an appearance, of course, on Shohei's side.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the grass terror typing, really nice to avoid all those sleep. It's a good defensive typing as well. But the issue you've got is on Shohei's side, there's a lot of Pokemon that can hit those grass types with super effective damage. The Landorus, for example, can go for that Terra Flying, and then Terra Blast going to hit hard. Power with Icicle Crash going to hit hard as well. Amoonguss as well can almost get a little bit of revenge, being like, okay, I can't put you to sleep, but I can hit you with the Pollen Puff. You're not going to appreciate that either. So you have to just make sure that when you're clicking that Terra button, you're doing it at the optimal time.
Definitely.
I also think, you know, and it's difficult to tell, right? Like, I know that people earlier on in the stream were discounting the grass knot that's present on Shoma's Amoonguss, but you know, we looked it up. We know how dangerous that grass knot can actually be. Spoilers if you're coming in late or if you're watching on YouTube, it can do a whole lot of damage to a lot of the targets that we're commonly seeing. So we'll see if that rears its head this time. I expect that if it does the 80% that I saw in the calc, that it is potentially able to do to this Urshifu during this match, people are going to lose their minds.
Yeah, let's see if Shoma, the content creator that he is now, if he's still got what it takes to compete here with a world champion in this generation.
Hands Cress. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a pretty straightforward turn. You have to live this Shadow Ball, and if you don't live this Shadow Ball, you're in a terrible spot.
Yep, and the Flutter Mane here on Shohei's side in a very great spot. With its stabs, it could hit both the Cresselia or the Iron Hands for super effective damage. Of course, Terrestrialization is still available, so that could be one way for Shoma to get out of this position. Or another way could be to try and maybe use that Volt Switch that he has on the Iron Hands to reposition and get something in. Or the other option, a very classical play throughout the years of VGC, and this is what he
did a ton of damage out crit.
Yeah,
Moonblast into the Iron Hands reads that something else is going to happen. That's very unfortunate for Shohei. You know, one thing that I want to point out is that Shohei's been making a ton of reads, and they've been right basically all day. This is the first one that he's made, or the first time that he's made like a really aggressive read, and it hasn't straight up been like backbreaking for his opponent. So maybe he's a little lost in the sauce. Every call he's been making today has been perfect. So I think this may be a sign that it's time to rein it in a little bit.
So the nice synergy of making sure that Landorus cannot go for any offensive damage.
That being said, still did quite a bit of damage to the hands, so like it's not a loss.
It does have a little bit more flexibility to maybe switch out. You don't have to worry so much about the choice band, but the choice specs on that Flutter Mane hit very hard into the Iron Hands.
Yeah, so no terrestrialization coming.
But do remember that his hands can always get healed by this Cress, and we don't know the speed stats, but it could even be slow enough that it can heal before hitting the Flutter Mane.
Cresselia and Iron Hands, two Pokemon that, well, the Cresselia only has Moonblast, that doesn't do that much damage, and the Iron Hands, of course, cannot really touch Landorus at all, and while it can do a quite decent chunk to the Flutter Mane on Shohei's side, it has been intimidated, and yeah, Shoma might look for some repositioning. Maybe the Volt Switch this turn, or just going for the full-out offensive. And once again, no terrestrialization on either side. It is just the Volt Switch, so Shoma...
Volt Switch, I think Amoonguss is really your only option here. If you want to bring in Heatran, then you could get punished extremely hard by something that might already be coming your way from the Landorus.
Really effective against that Flutter Mane. That choice spec's really paying off with how much offensive pressure it can give. And it does give Shoma the opportunity to bring the Amoonguss onto the field. The Moonblast comes out to double target.
Oh my god, that did nothing. Drops the special attack though, that's massive. That's huge.
That's exactly what Shoma wanted to see here. So even though Moonblast just doing a little bit of chip damage,
makes the read that Cress is gonna yeah. I think Shohei's lost in the sauce, man. He made the read on the Crest leaving too.
Was targeted into the Cresselia, maybe predicting a switch out, yeah, into Heatran, but also
so that's two predictions that, you know, they haven't gotten like super poorly. I mean, one of them was bad, you know, it ended up basically nullifying the Landorus turn.
But it is holding the Rocky Helmet, so yeah, you would take some recoil, but thanks to the safety goggles that Shohei has on its Landorus, once again,
Kind of
is so threatened. I wonder what Shoma is going to
he's
do
making a
versus
lot of
that,
reads. He's
but
not making any
maybe
safe
go for the
plays,
Terra
and I'm not sure
Blast
if I like
to
that.
avoid the Spore as well.
That's true. There could be terrestrialized options on either side of Shohei's side. You could go for, again, with that Landorus, something like the Terra Flying, to be able to hit Terra Blast into that Amoonguss that could be causing a little bit of disruption later on. But no terrestrialization. It's going to be the Grass Knot coming
Grass
out.
Knot does decent damage into the Lando, honestly.
Try and follow up, but it only just pushes it over the 50% bar. And here's the Stomping Tantrum.
Stomping into the
Even more
Amoonguss.
damage this turn.
Crit kill.
Wow, a big knockout here, and you can see the trainers. Yeah, Shoma were definitely not happy with how that went. Yeah, he's like, oh wow, like that can one shot, and he's like.
All right, he does get free switch into Heatran here though, so he can run Heatran and Crest, and then just do Helping Hand Heat Waves until he's dead.
Once again, Shoma couldn't really use his Trick Room turns so effectively, and then maybe he's forced now into his Heatran, and maybe he's forced to go for the terrestrialization because. Yeah,
what punishes him for going for that off of Shohei's? It's just Chien-Pao, right?
Exactly, and I think as well the Amoonguss was in such
Yeah, Chien-Pao right now is the only thing that will punish him for going for Helping Hand Heat Wave off of the Heatran. Granted, everything hits. We have seen that Heat Wave has been very inconsistent today. So, all with a grain of salt.
One more turn of Trick Room down as well.
Exactly, so it is the Heatran.
But Lando's in big trouble. Amoonguss doesn't want to eat this. And if he Terra Grasses the Heatran, Amoonguss can't actually put anything to sleep.
So yeah, maybe the Cresselia. I don't know how exactly the Heatran and the Cresselia match up in terms of speed order.
And then remaining Pokemon, we saw Fluttermane, so we know Fluttermane's there. If Shohei brought Chien, then this is kind of rough. It's kind of rough. If he did not bring Chien, then the only thing that can really punish him would be the Terraflying Terra Blast out of Lando. But Lando's not really in a position to do a whole lot of stuff.
Looks like he was predicting something else. Well, it's just the Protect on the Amoonguss, even though that would have been a free Spore into the Heatran. Oh, it's a double Protect actually.
Just a double protect, so burning through those here on this turn. Cresselia trying to help out the Heatran, but to no avail. It doesn't have an ability like the Urshifu's with Unseen Fist, isn't going to be able to get any damage here at all. And again, another turn.
God, my voice is like really leaving me. Right, how much more do we have of this?
In a good position here. A Heat Wave going to be able to potentially pick up the
I think only 3 more matches.
It doesn't have a lot of HP remaining at the moment, particularly if it does get the Helping Hand boost, and Amoonguss doesn't want to take any of those flames either. It's just whether you're going to go for that terrestrialization or not. I think the Terra Grass will help out, obviously, against being potentially put to sleep, but you've got Lunar Blessing to back you up there.
Yeah, I think what Shoma is trying to do is to somehow get through the Landorus without using the terrestrialization, because then actually with Heatran's typing, it would be in a decent spot against both the Amoonguss and the Fluttermane that we have already seen from Shohei. We haven't seen the last Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken, so there could still be maybe an Iron Hands waiting for him, or the Urshifu. That both of them, yeah, the Heatran kind of wants to terrestrialize, but this is the last turn of Trick Room, so Shoma is really looking to do a lot of damage.
I'm not really concerned with, if I'm Shoma, I'm not, they're talking about, like, when you pop the Terra, like, you're potentially in a rough spot. Lunar Blessing, wow, actually, because of Lunar Blessing and the interaction with that, this was definitely the correct play.
Boosted with a life orb, that is a lot
because of the speed tiers, he could guarantee effectively that he doesn't get put to sleep. Because even if he does get put to sleep, it doesn't matter. Lunar Blessing wakes you back up. So that's excellent team building from Shoma, actually, making sure that Cresselia underspeeds the Heatran so the Lunar Blessing removes the sleep status and allows him to hit the Heat Wave. That's excellent team building.
Could prevent another Trick Room from coming up. However, it's still anyone's game, I would say, as Shoma now has to make a choice as to whether he wants to protect or terrestrialize with the Heatran. There's also the potential of going for a Terra Grass Terra Blast into his opponent's Urshifu. So yeah, if Shoma can find just a couple more attacks coming out from that Heatran, he could definitely still win this game.
Where are we at? I wish they would show us where we're at on Trick Room turns. I don't remember if we're at one more.
anything like this. So the Flutter Mane's not super threatened, and Flutter Mane having come back onto the field means it can reset it.
This Flutter is specs. We know for sure that this Flutter can't do anything that will actually, like, well, I don't know why I'm extending that so much. Flutter can't protect.
Go through any potential protect as well to try and get the knockout before Trick Room comes up again.
Yeah, there's also a big mind game this turn as Shohei's Urshifu is running Taunt. So we've already seen that to great effect in some of the earlier matches. But the question is now, did the Urshifu just go for the Taunt? This would shut down any plans that Shoma might have had with...
Here's the Ursh.
However, if you don't take care of the Heatran, then that means that the Urshifu would have been under KO pressure from the Terra Grass Terra Blast. So yeah, I don't know if Shohei called this.
I would have liked to stay in with the Heatran, honestly. I don't think this Lando at its HP value can beat the Cresselia one-on-one. So if you can remove... and it only is Stomping Tantrum, right? So...
however, does get the knockout on the Iron Hands that rejoined for that Heatran. Would have been nice as well, maybe thinking if that's going to be a Terra Grass Heatran there, just trying to get some big damage.
I definitely think Heatran was the better choice.
Yep, there is a big Searching Strike.
This is safety Gog, so this is not, this Urshifu is not taking Rocky Helmet damage like we've seen so many times today.
And we'll be able to set up the Trick Room. However, Shoma probably kicking himself a little bit there as, yeah, of course, with the Searching Strikes, the move that...
Oh wait, Trick Room is not up. Never mind. This is probably better.
A Psychic type or a Fairy type going into
I couldn't tell if Trick Room still had one more turn.
Is no longer available for Heatran, meaning that, yeah, there's not going to be any Terra Blast.
Actually, now that I think about it, was it better?
I wonder if the combination of either Helping Hand Earth Power might get the knockout on the Urshifu, or if the...
Yeah, in a vacuum it's better because otherwise you guaranteed die to the Shadow Ball double up.
It's fighting typing, so it's not going to be super effective anymore. Yeah, like I wonder if Shoma has KO pressure, but either way, fortunately for him, he was able to get Trick Room up again.
I think Heat Wave plus Moonblast kills the Surge.
Make sure that, yeah, you win this game in the next 4 turns. Because, yeah, if you let this Urshifu move first, Heatran and Cresselia would both faint to it. So you really have to do something here.
Exactly, we can't exactly leave the Flutter Mane unchecked.
Helping Hand Earth Power. Does this do more damage than a Moonblast double?
So all the eggs going into the Heatran basket, trying to get some damage, but Urshifu going to be going first here. Goes straight down into the Heatran with the Aqua Jet. Not enough to be able to get the KO, though. Heatran still in here, going for the Earth Power, and it is enough to get the knockout, but Flutter Mane still in prime position to go for another one of those powerful Moonblasts.
Yeah, I wonder if he doubled.
So what did Flutter target? If Flutter targeted into Heatran, this game might be over right now.
I'm not sure.
Heatran is so hurt.
Shohei probably wasn't so sure about this either. Goes on the Cresselia, and you can see Shoma there. He was really hoping that Cresselia could somehow take the hit, because then maybe next turn you can gain some HP back with Lunar Blasting potentially, or just, yeah, go on the offense with the Cresselia. But now, without Cresselia as its partner, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Heatran to clean up the game, I would think.
Yes, and Flutter Mane's not.
Yeah, I don't think this Heatran Oko's the Flutter. So I think you're begging for a crit at this point.
Yeah, I think you need a crit on the Flutter Mane. Heatran only he can still do 2 more attacks. Yeah, with the Life Orb, but it's coming down to the wire. Yeah, Heatwave connecting with both. Heatran dropping down its HP due to the Life Orb, and then because of the
dies to the Moonblast. Yep.
This Moonblast, even though, yeah, as I said, quadruple resisted, will be enough to knock on.
That was a very rough end game. I'm not sure Shoma had a way out after a certain point.
By Shohei, I would say, but also kudos to Shoma, who definitely, yeah, realized that his path to victory was getting that Heatran in there under Trick Room. Was able to set up the Trick Room a second time, but unfortunately for him, the Life Orb Heatran, it is very powerful, but it wasn't quite powerful enough to clean out that game.
It's no easy feat to get Trick Room up sometimes, let alone get it up twice in one match. But I think you made a good...
Yeah, I think Heatwave Moonblast would have been better because then you get damage down on the Flutter, right? So then when you attack again with the Heatran, the Flutter actually dies. I think Helping Hand Earth Power was not the move.
And it would have been much more difficult for the Urshifu to...
Because what does that actually protect you from dealing with?
But if it was Terra Grass,
you're slower than both. You're going to take the Aqua Jet. You needed to take the Aqua Jet anyway.
Going into the next game, do you see many adjustments, or
you weren't doing any healing that turn? I don't see any reason to not go for the Heat Wave plus the Moonblast. Like, granted, you can miss, and we saw actually, I believe, Shoma's Heatran miss earlier, but
perfectly against the Iron Hands and Cresselia.
When you're in a
So I think
position like
Shoma's
that, I
team is
think the heat
relying
wave's
much more
necessary.
on Trick Room than some of the other flexible Trick Room teams we've seen also at the World
Like if you
Championships.
miss, you lose, but if you don't
Usually
miss,
they're, well,
you
in
probably
the
also
Ruthless
lose.
archetype, there's often also like a fast move,
And
like a
granted,
Flutter
that's
Mane,
hindsight, right? Having the foresight to go
and
ahead and be
they
like,
still,
well, I'll
however,
probably lose if I don't hit a
Landorus, the
crit.
Heatran, Iron Hands, like all of these Pokemon are below 100 base
You know,
speed, so all of them
that's
are
fine. But
happy to
you're
deal
already
with
accepting a
Trick
heat
Room,
wave later.
which
Why
means
not
that
accept one
there's
earlier that
a lot
makes your
more
life a
weight
ton
on the
easier? I
Cresselia
don't know.
in this kind of team
And
composition
probably
against the Trick
guarantees you the
Room,
win if
so I
both
totally
connect.
understand why he just wanted to lead with
I
it right
think
away,
definitely Heat Wave
have the Iron
Moonblast was
Hands
the
as
move.
support, and I think he needs to bring the Cresselia up front once again. However, I don't know if Iron Hands is the perfect partner.
I gotta put the
Now, I
headphones
don't
back
know
on.
how his
My head kinda
Landorus is
hurts.
trained, but maybe that could be something. If it can take a hit from the Flutter Mane, then you just go for a very strong Earthquake. But then again, if Shohei just goes with his own Landorus again, then also Landorus doesn't do a lot. So I understand Shoma's decision here to go.
Yep, we've been live for 6 hours.
But then maybe in
It
the middle
is
game,
3:30
maybe
a.m.
switch
for me.
something up compared to how the first game went.
Yeah, I think we might have just seen Sylveon locked in there as well, so that's definitely a turn up for the books. I think the Iron Hands needs to be piloted a little bit stronger for Shoma, but let's jump into the game. It's going to be a full physical offense from Shohei here. Lando is still out front.
All right, Lando Ursh.
For Shoma, you have got the Iron Hands and Cresselia once again.
Yeah, this is
I feel like this lead sucks less to deal with for Shoma than the lead with Flutter.
Now, if this was any other Pokemon, then maybe he's threatening a KO in it, but the taunt would have been an option. And so yeah, with Fake Out, Shoma
He does have the
could
taunt,
decide to
though.
go for that and would just prevent the taunt from happening.
We were talking about that
At the
as an
same time,
option.
though, this is very obvious, right?
Do we think that the
Shohei,
Lando-
he's a world champion, right? I mean, Shoma is too, but yeah, you have to also respect, I think, the switch up, like a switch out from the Urshifu. Maybe Mungus comes straight in. Maybe it's another Pokemon that Shoma currently cannot really deal with that well. But I think, yeah, if you're in Shoma's shoes, you really want to go for that fake out.
protects the
just
Urshifu.
to stop this taunt from happening. It's a protect coming out here from Shohei, but I think Shoma is pretty fine with that.
Yeah, exactly. Lander is, of course, unable to... Oh, no, this one can protect, actually. Is running the safety goggles, but choosing not to. Going
Stomping
straight for the
does
Stomping Tantrum into that opposing Iron Hands.
a little bit
Huge
over
amount of
half.
damage. Another one of those is going to be able to get the knockout, but Cresselia...
Did less
free
than the
unchecked
Moonblast,
from that
so
taunt
we're
as
actually
well.
in a more
Once
advantageous
again,
position than last
that
time.
speed momentum coming right back to Shoma.
I'm not so sure how much I like the protect from Shohei on the first turn, because now it seems kind of obvious that the Urshifu has to switch out, right? It's under pressure from a Moonblast or Wild Charge, and if he didn't protect the first turn, then maybe he could have gone for
Yeah,
it
what
this
other stuff
turn.
does Shohei have in the back? Does he have any Wild Charge
Shohei have
resists?
relied on this. I think one Pokemon that we've also seen in the previous game. For Shohei
I think a helping hand or even just like a normal Wild Charge into the slot that Urshifu's in right now would be
doesn't do so much damage.
very good.
So I wouldn't be
Amoonguss is the
surprised
only
if
thing that he
Shohei
can
decides
bring
to
in
go
and
for
not
Urshifu,
like have it be a
just
serious
boost again.
problem.
At the same time, though, it's hard to come up with a plan for Shoma. Maybe just wall switch again into the Urshifu slot so you can reposition here under the Trick Room. And the switch up is exactly what we're going to see.
Yeah, you called it perfectly there. Urshifu leaving the field, wanting to come back maybe when Trick Room is over. And it's actually going to be the Iron Hands coming in, not an Amoonguss here. Volt Switch, however, is going to...
Oh, he does have hands. I just missed that on the team sheet. Damn.
Hands, but it does give Shoma the opportunity to pivot in one of the Pokemon that's going to really benefit from this Trick Room.
It's got to be the Sylveon.
Yeah,
Sylveon.
can apply so much fairy pressure against the Iron Hands. Again, you know, Urshifu's in the back here, and Landorus isn't going to appreciate these either. With Heatran coming onto the field with Stomping Tantrum playing around, it's a risk that you want to try and avoid, unless you maybe want to go for something like the Terra Grass. That way you can bypass it a little bit more, but you don't need to be hasty with those Terrestrializations either.
Yeah. So I don't think it's like the perfect situation for Sylveon to hit the field, but it is a pretty good one. So, well, of course, Iron Hands could still go for a Fake Out on the next turn, but switching in here, actually the Stomping Tantrum should hurt quite a bit. But now you've got the Sylveon on
Fake
the
Out
board.
Stomping shouldn't
On the
kill.
side where you need the Cresselia to go for Lunar Blessing this turn to help the Sylveon make it through the turn. because
If they
would be under
Lunar.
pressure of being KO'd by a Fake Out plus Stomping Tantrum combination. However, at the same time, of course, Shohei also knows that and could use this Fake Out not to do a lot of damage, but to reposition maybe and swap the Lando out again. However, if you've paid attention, there's actually no great Pokemon on Shoma's side to switch into that Stomping Tantrum. We've got the Heatran. Well, Shohei doesn't know about that, but he can suspect it after how the first game went.
Exactly.
And we've got the Iron Hands at the back. So, yeah, Sylveon is really the damage
Fake
dealer,
Out.
and Shoma needs to make sure
This is
that
very
he takes
convincingly.
his turn and decides to go for the Lunar Blessing here, which I think is the right choice this turn.
I think it's the only way to enable that Sylveon to stay here, because that Stomping Tantrum, we saw how much it did in the first connect. The Fake Out in particular would have just pushed it over that halfway mark, and now the Stomping Tantrum would easily been able to, I think, to have got the knockout there. So the Lunar Blessing coming in clutch to be able to allow it to...
Helping Hand Hyper
but
Voice
now
might be the play here.
How are Sylveon and Iron Hands...
It still looks like a
catching up
very
with
rough spot for
speed?
Shoma.
Because if Shohei's Iron Hands is slower, it's definitely going to be slower than the Cresselia if it is trained slowly. And then, yeah, it could just go for a wild charge and end the Sylveon's dreams of turning this battle and the best of 3 around. So, yeah, does Shoma even have another option? He's also looking through his Pokemon. He could bring in the hands, but yeah, it doesn't look that great against the Stomping.
Yeah, the problem is, like how does Shoma advance his win condition from this point forward? I think he has to attack with the Sylveon, and he has to accept that the hands might be slower, and he might just lose.
Take any of the fairy type moves that will be coming its way. It is,
Yeah.
however, going to be felled before it's even able to go for a move by the Iron Hands here. Just going for that Drain Punch.
And we were talking about the wild charge, but no, Shohei, he knows his speed tiers, he knows his damage calcs. Just a tiny optimization, going for the Drain Punch instead, recovering just a little bit of HP instead of taking a little bit of recoil.
That was a crit Moonblast. Oh, and that did nothing.
He didn't go for the Lunar Blessing. Instead, he was like, okay, maybe I just need to get.
I think it's
some
just
damage
Jover.
from his
I think it's
Iron
just
Hand, so he
Jover.
decides to go for the Moonblast and is rewarded with a critical hit.
Yeah, this offers a lot of the
Assault Vest, Iron Hands. And now with the Sylveon out of the way,
or this shows so many of the issues with playing Trick Room, right? You're in so many situations where, at least with hard Trick Room, right? You're in so many situations where you're trying to deal with the opponent's Pokemon, but at least in this game series, in Scarlet and Violet, right? Like Iron Hands has always been available, Moongus is always available. Sorry, Iron Hands has not always been available, but now Iron Hands is always available. Moongus is always available, and both of those are like really slow Pokemon that fit on any team. So you're in a situation where it's like, how do you actually deal with that?
To be able to apply some pressure with the Terra Boss later, but you don't want to hard commit to that until you know. We're going to see the Helping Hands come out here from the Cresselia as well, just to give a little bit of a boost to the Heatran as it goes forward. Drain Punch, of course, not going to be dealing as much damage now that Steel typing has gone away. Grass typing going to be able to take that reasonably well, and of course Iron Hand's going to be leaving itself a little bit vulnerable too.
There are ways to deal with it. You can get Pokemon that are slower.
Nowhere near enough to get some knockouts.
Yeah, wow, this Helping Hand live for Heatran, really doing a ton of damage. However, now once again, it's kind of sandwiched with the speed tiers, having the Iron Hands outspeeded in Trick Room and then the Urshifu outspeeding it outside of Trick Room. So actually I think this Heat Wave maybe did a little bit more damage than Shohei might have expected. He could still take it relatively okay with both of his Pokemon, but if there was another one of those, that would be a big problem. So now this could give Shoma...
yeah, Shohei has 2 Pokemon, but the point I'm making is that Shohei currently has 2 Pokemon that I think underspeed the entirety of Shoma's team, and Shoma's only win con is Trick Room. Only consistent win con is Trick Room. So you're in a position where you can't bring your sweepers out because they get undersped by an Amoonguss and put to sleep, or they get undersped by the Iron Hands and just die. And it's rough.
Yes, I think, you know, the Trick Room turns got eaten into so much the first time around by that Sylveon that just wasn't able to capitalize on it. Maybe your adjustment in towards the second half of this game too is just to go straight onto that offensive. We're going to see the adaptation as well by Shohei bringing in the Qian power from game 1 to game 2, and a very bold terrestrialization here on that Urshifu. That's going to leave itself very vulnerable to something like a Grass Terra Blast coming out from that Heatran.
Yeah, is this going to be an Aqua Jet? I mean, he switched in the Qian power, and yeah, it looks like it is an Aqua Jet.
Is it going to be enough, though, going down into...
No.
Oh, no, really minimal damage.
No, just the Searching Strikes.
Yeah,
but
Searching
with the
Strikes.
Qian power, that just gives him the defense drop that he needed to power through that Heatran. And yeah, there was no switch into the Iron Hands that, yeah, maybe could have brought it back for Shoma, but even then you're staring down a 2v4 in Trick Room. So yeah, nicely played here. And Shoma, who just tried to go on the offensive, due to that terrestrialization on the Urshifu, this Moonblast, not enough to take...
Yeah, it's Jover. It's Jover.
And yeah, once again, only 2 Pokemon left for Shoma, while Shohei still has all 4 remaining. And yeah, Shohei really also showing how his team can act in a different way. This time not banking so much on the Flutter Mane for damage, but now having the Urshifu plus Qianpao combination and also bringing the Iron Hands over the Amoonguss. Really well positioned here by Shohei. And yeah, it just looks very tough here for Shoma to come back into this game.
Yeah, honestly, Urshifu and Chienpao are a match made in heaven. They have such great synergy amongst themselves. Chienpao doesn't even need to attack, it just needs to be on the field to be able to help out the Urshifu. It has left here Shohei in a position where he can go for some repositioning.
Yeah, bringing the land out, this hands is no way to deal with that.
Be able to deal too much, considering as well, you know, you've got the water Urshifu. That's
Fake out, that's probably gonna lead to a kill, right?
Did enough damage there, possibly even allowing the Cresselia to.
Or you can go into Trick Room. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
To all of the Pokemon on the opposing side. That Chienpao's also in the back. There's 4 whole Pokemon for Shohei here to rotate through.
Yeah, so Shoma gets this turn correct, goes for the fake out on the Urshifu that probably was trying to maybe taunt or maybe just even get the KO with another Searching Strikes. While Shohei is saying, hey, even if you go for that, like, what does it really help you? I have my Landorus, I can intimidate your Iron Hands, I could swap out and bring it back in. You don't really have a great way of dealing with my Landorus at all. And then there's still Chienpao with a Focus Sash waiting in the back. Of course, that Iron Hands, is waiting to drain some HP from that.
Yeah, I'm repeatedly impressed by Shohei's play.
But the Landorus is just maybe just a little bit too much. I don't really know what
this dude is really showing why he just won the world championships, like repeatedly and regularly.
It is going to go for the Drain Punch, like you said, trying to get a little bit of HP recovery, but it is going to be very underwhelming and not nearly enough to be able to bypass the offensive power that this Urshifu has. Cresselia, however, is like, you don't have to take another Aqua Jet. I've got you. I'm going to go for this Moonblast, finally felling one of Shohei's Pokemon. But there are just so many in the back to contend with. The Chienpao as well coming in with something like the Sucker Punch. That's going to be able to apply a lot.
This Landorus hasn't even attacked either.
Nicely played here by Shohei.
Yeah, it's over.
Of course, Iron Hands is carrying the Assault Vest, so cannot really go for a Protect. And instead, it will get knocked out with the Aqua Jet and Stomping Tantrum combination.
He just wins the trade war at this point.
Gone for Lunar Blessing.
Crest can't do anything.
Enough, so nicely done here by Shohei, covering all.
And Crest doesn't even have Protect, so it takes a free hit this turn.
Into a 1v3, and yeah, Cresselia
And then
is very difficult to take down, but I don't think Cresselia has what it takes to turn this game around.
Exactly, not when you've just got so much you can rotate through with here. Going for something like the Fake Out, the Stomping Tantrum will just keep whittling away at this opposing Cresselia. And yes, it can heal itself up a little bit.
Crit Fake Out.
But it's not going to be able to deal enough damage to get the KOs in return. And you've got to get KOs
U-turn
to win the battle.
does really good damage.
And Shohei can just really switch around here with his Pokemon. Even though they're all relatively low and both Chienpao and Iron Hands are weak to the Moonblast. If it's a 3v1, I mean, after all, in double battle,
that is Landorus's best move to deal damage right now.
Fake out and also Sucker Punched here. Shohei knows that this is curtains. Selects to forfeit the game. Both players sharing some words there after the game. And Shohei, our reigning world champion defeats a former world champion and will move on here to the losers finals.
I think this was something we were talking about.
Yeah,
earlier.
I mean that game just came down to speed tiers, right? Shohei's running Shoma's running a Trick Room team that isn't slow enough to underspeed Trick Room counters. It's hard to make that work. You know, I think that's part of the reason that Torkoal is so popular in Trick Room, right? Is because it's so slow that you can't underspeed it.